Marlborough's public library finally became more than just a good idea when at a town meeting on April 4, 1870, a vote passed to establish a free public library. Over the course of almost 10 months, much work was needed to be done before the library was ready to open.
They voted at the town meeting to appropriate $300 to pick a room, up to the judgment of a committee, to refurbish, to set up for a free library, in which they went ahead and did. The second thing they needed to do at town meeting was vote to approve the initial board of trustees of 9 members, and they were now 9 members recommended by a screening committee, and they were all approved for staggered terms, 3 a year, for 1871, 1872, and 1873. And all of a sudden we had our first Marlborough Public Library literally right there in the town hall.
Residents pitched in, donating money, books, and art. The Mechanics Institute donated its collection as a foundation, while the town appropriated $1,300.
And an arrangement was worked out where the Mechanics Institute would transfer over for free their library collection to the town of Marlborough back then. And that needed to go to the town meeting for a vote, which it did in April of 1870. The town meeting approved the transfer.
Edward L. Bigelow was called the father of the Marlborough Public Library. Over the course of his life, he was very instrumental in the library's success. In the beginning, he was the library's first contributor, donating hundreds of books over the course of his life. Bigelow was a highly intelligent man who was studying to become a civil engineer. But when his father became ill, he returned home to help out with the Morson Bigelow General Store on Lincoln Street.
From 1870 all the way to his death, which would have been after the present-day library was built, he was president or head of the library board of trustees. He contributed so much of his time, but so many of his own volumes to the library. He really, not only for what he did for the library, but for what he did for the whole community. Just an outstanding individual from the Bigelow family, which is a well-known family in Marlborough.
Bigelow was a charitable man and never turned away anyone who approached him looking for help. When he died in 1915, Marlborough not only lost one of their most loved residents, but they also lost the only chairman the library had seen in its 43 years of existence.
Madam Librarian,
the first librarian at the Marlborough Public Library was a farmer's daughter from Petersboro, New Hampshire. Lizzie Wright grew up in Marlborough and served as librarian for 12 years before meeting an early death due to malarial fever. She was 44 years old.
Her reputation was one of appealing to the young people at the time, and she was very conscious about the needs of the patrons, and she dealt with them on a personal basis. And she was very careful and courteous, and she also was very dedicated to the library.
She came in and she made it so easy for people to enjoy the new collection. Had a sense of kindness about her.
When it opened in 1870, the Marlborough Public Library was located in just one room inside the city's original town hall.
You had the People's National Bank, what most people in Marlborough are familiar with. You had a post office there. You had 2 stores. I think one was named Nolan's Store and another was Hammond's Store. And it really was a buzz with activity. Everything sort of happened right there.
In 1881, the First National Bank moved out and the library opened a reading and periodical room. 3 years later, a former waiting room was renovated for students and trustees. In 1897, another small room was added, but with the book count up to 25,000, the little library was rapidly outgrowing all available space in the town hall. In 1901, newly elected mayor Walter Morse had a plan.
He determined or was advised that there were grants available through Mr. Carnegie, and he made trips to New York, numerous trips to New York.
and was unsuccessful in his first trip to contact Mr. Carnegie at his offices in New York City. And then he went back a second time, and he was able to talk to his secretary. And subsequently, he received notice that Mr. Carnegie was going to donate $30,000 to build the library.
The Carnegie family immigrated from Scotland in 1848. Young Andrew began his working career at the age of 13, working in a textile mill. From there, he rose to become a steel industrialist, millionaire, and philanthropist. He believed in wealthy people giving back to society. Carnegie had a soft spot for libraries, and it showed. He funded over 2,500 libraries in the United States and other countries. The location of the new library came to light in 1902, when Simon Herbert Howe and John Fry donated 2 lots at the corner of Bates Avenue and West Main Street. The lot was 30,000 square feet and valued at $11,000. That's $283,000 in today's money.
There was a house there. It was formerly a Reverend Packard's house, and then had been occupied by the Witherbys. So they had to take the house down.
The city also stepped up and allocated $5,000 for construction. Michael Burke, Hannah Swift, and Winslow Warren added $1,000 each to fund the building. There was a buzz about the city with the plans, land, and monies in place to build a bigger public library. And in 1902, a tragedy on Main Street would make the need for this building more important than ever. The Marlborough Public Library opened its doors inside the town hall in 1871. By the turn of the new century, the library trustees were in need of more room than there was available in Town Hall. Thanks to the tireless work by Mayor Walter Morse, Andrew Carnegie donated $30,000 to build a new building. By Christmas night of 1902, the need for a new building would come to be realized in a dramatic way. Most of the contents of the library were destroyed. In that one fire-filled evening, the Marlborough Public Library went from over 25,000 books to just over 2,000. Librarian Lizzie Wright headed up the charge to rebuild the now homeless library's collection.
She just gathered everybody together, and they opened up a library. I think it was in the Hunter Block, if I'm not mistaken. And they got donations from the patrons, and there was a lot of books that were in circulation, which was good. So they were able to start building up a collection.
Construction of the Carnegie Library was completed, and the new building was opened on October 20th, 1904. No longer did the public have to crowd into cramped quarters in the Hunter Block, where they had been for 2 months after the town hall fire.
Beautiful building, as we all know, and really became a real focal point, center point for Marlborough.
It gave the community a whole new venue to come and read and meet people and so forth. So it was quite a jump for the city of Marlborough.
For the next 4 decades, the Marlborough Public Library grew and flourished. Residents utilized all the free services the library had to offer. And the 1950s brought more excitement when Eleanor Jones, the children's librarian, worked hard to promote the idea of creating a children's room. With the contributions of Brookline native William Burdett, the room became a reality on May 16, 1953.
They had 80 to 100 kids every Saturday coming in, doing programmings. They had puppet shows. They had all types of interactive activities for the kids. In the summer, Eleanor Jones ran book reading programs, summer reading programs. It really was a model of activity, and that room allowed all these wonderful people to do these really good things. And And you just hear so many good stories of people that were young of that era, the good memories they have, the wonderful compliments they have of Mrs. Jones and Mrs. Audette. So it's just a great story.
Unfortunately for the library and its contents, history would repeat itself. Much like the turn of the century brought the town hall fire when the library was looking to expand, in July of 1967, fire would strike the Marlborough Public Library again, just as it was moving forward with expansion plans.
It was set by a young fellow that was a pyromaniac, and I remember there were several factories that he set on fire, there was homes that he set on fire, and the police knew who it was, but they had to catch him in the act. And there was this big block on the corner of Lincoln and Broad Street that had, I think it was 4 floors, and there was apartments and stores on the bottom floor. And they caught him one night setting fire to the porches in the back. And so that ended that spree, and the whole city was relieved. I remember coming in the next morning. Bertha Shapiro was the librarian at the time, and the whole downstairs was all charred. And in her office, her sister was the assistant director of the library. And the only thing recognizable in the office was the frame of a typewriter that had been in one of the desks. So, I mean, it was an intense fire that set. But the one good thing that fire, we had big fire doors that closed and saved the whole collection, which was on 2 floors. The second floor was a glass floor, but this was only accessible by the librarian. So when you came in the front entrance off of West Main Street, you went to the front desk, and if you wanted a book in the collection, you had to ask a librarian for it, and they went into the 2 levels and got the books. So the only books that you had access to were what was in the two reading rooms, and so that door closed, and it saved everything. The only thing that was lost were the books that were in the 2 reading rooms and in the main lobby. But a lot of records were destroyed at that time.
The post office just moved into their new building, leaving their old one on Mechanic Street vacant. The library set up there temporarily with the help of the DPW. They moved 18,000 books in 1 week's time and had the doors opened in 3 weeks.
The librarians used to have to go from the post office if somebody wanted a book and go over to the old building, go into the stacks, until they finally tore them all down. And those books were moved twice. They were moved into the old Carnegie portion when it was renovated. And then when the building was finished, they had to be all moved back.
The Marlborough Public Library reopened its doors on April 30th, 1970. It now had nearly 50,000 books and countless periodicals and newspapers. A formal dedication was held on June 14th.
If you look at the library today, from the West Main Street entrance, the building with the columns and the 2 big windows to the left, that's all that's left of the Carnegie building that was built in 1902 to 1904. And the big addition was put on. It's a very busy place. That's all I can say, and I can't foresee the future that, whatever comes down the pike in the next 5 years, that we won't be right up there, and that the library is a very necessary thing to the community.
It's been a wonderful institution over the years, and it will continue to do all these things. Wonderful new leadership, and our most recently appointed librarian Margaret, and we'll just continue to do good things.